Hello, my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome to my channel, and in today's video I will be wrapping up all of the books that I read in the month of July. But before I get into that, I do just want to do a quick update to my August TBR. I will be participating in the Avatar The Last Pageturner readathon, which to my understanding is created and hosted by Kevs, Kai, Ben, and Bin. The readathon started on August 1st, and by the time this video goes up it will already be a couple days in, but it does go on for 2 weeks, so I figured I would just put it out there because by the time you see my first vlog it'll be like a week in, but I figured I would put it in this video just in case anybody still wants to participate. There's still a lot of time left. I will put links to this readathon down in the description below. I highly encourage you to check it out. It seems really fun. All the prompts are Avatar The Last Airbender based, and then they're also based around like diverse and own voices, authors, and stories. I'm thinking my first vlog for this is going to go up the 10th, and then maybe the second one the 17th, and I will be going over like my TBR and everything over in that video. So with that, let's start the wrap up. I ended up reading 13 books last July, and if you haven't seen my July TBR, a lot of those ended up being contemporaries. Actually, for a contemporary themed month, I think more of those probably could have been contemporaries now that I'm thinking about it. I did go into this knowing that contemporaries weren't my favorite genre, so I wanted to start the month off strong, and I definitely think I made the right choice. So we're going to start this wrap up with The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So this is a book that came out a few years ago. I want to say it was Angie Thomas's debut, but it's like based around the Black Lives Matter movement. So this book follows our main character Star, who lives her life in two different worlds. Her already uneasy life is turned upside down one day when she is the witness to the fatal shooting of her unarmed best friend at the hands of a police officer. After this, the shooting becomes a national headline, and everyone wants to know what really happened that day, and the only one with the answers to that is Star. However, what she has to say could endanger her life and her community. So I read On the Come Up back in June, and I really loved that, so I was definitely not going to do a contemporary month and not include Angie Thomas's other book. I'm about 99% sure this was her debut, and if this is her debut, it's one of the best debuts I've ever read. From the message, to the plotline, to the characters, especially Star, everything about this book was just so amazing. And not only that, but Star also had some really sweet relationships with like her boyfriend and her family. And I left this one out of my last sentence because I wanted to highlight it separately, but her friendship with Maya was just one of my favorite parts of the book. I love seeing them come together in this, and friendships are one of my favorite things to read about, so this was definitely one of the high points for me, but this book was just full of high points. It's one of the easiest 5 stars I've given out this year, well, not just this year, but like every year, and I honestly cannot recommend this book enough. So next I have Mara Tiebreaker by Danielle Page. This is part of the DC Ink collection and follows Princess Mara as she goes on a mission to assassinate the long-lost Atlantean prince. However, this all gets turned upside down when the two of them fall in love. Okay, so this book was exactly what it sounds like. I don't have too many thoughts on it here. I thought it was fine. It's not the best from DC Ink that I've ever read, but I didn't not like it, so I gave it 3 stars. So the next book is Sirius Moonlight by Jen Bennett. So this follows our main character Birdie, who was raised in isolation by her strict grandparents. During this time, she falls in love with mystery books, and then she starts to live her life in a fantasy world where she is a detective and all the strangers she meets are the suspects. Her life begins to expand one summer when she starts to work at this historic Seattle hotel, and then she also meets this guy named Daniel. Daniel stumbles upon a real-life mystery, and then these two work together to solve it. So at the beginning of July, I did a 2-part 1-week reading vlog where in that time frame I read as many books as I possibly could. So if you want to hear like my full thoughts on this book in like spoiler-free review format, I will have the videos like down in the description below. But for the purposes of this video, I'm not a fan of mystery, so the overall plot of this, most of it ended up boring me. But I feel like at the points of the book that weren't mystery based, I did have a pretty decent time with it, so I ended up giving this 3 stars. So the next book is Jackpot by Nick Stone. So this book follows our main character Rico, who works at the Gas and Go, and one day she sells a winning lottery ticket. The person who won the lottery has not yet claimed the ticket, and Rico uses this as an opportunity to try to track this person down and try to turn her luck around, and she enlists the help of this super rich classmate of hers to help her find this person. So I did read this book in the same vlog as I read Sirius Moonlight, but I did have a much better time with this one. I enjoyed all the characters in here, especially Rico, and then there were also conversations about race and class. The story was also fast-paced, which I did really enjoy, but it also did hurt the ending a little bit for me because that just felt a little rushed. But other than that, I really enjoyed this and I ended up giving it 4 stars. So the next book is Under the Moon, a Catwoman Tale by Laura Miracle. This is also part of the DC Ink collection. It's like a teenage Selena Kyle origin story. This was the first book I finished in part 2 of that reading vlog. I read it in hopes that it would be like light and fun alongside the other book I read in that video. But that was not the case. It actually did deal with some really heavy topics, so content warnings in the description below. So once again, kind of like Mara, this was not my favorite in the DC Ink collection. That actually goes to Raven by Cami Garcia. But there were still some really cool things in here that I did end up enjoying, and I actually did end up liking this one more than Mara Tiebreaker, so I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. So the last book that I ended up finishing for that vlog is Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake. So this book follows twins Mara and Owen, and they are very close. However, one day Mara's friend Hannah accuses Owen of rape, and this really turns Mara's world upside down. She then starts to struggle between her family and then her own morals, and then also she's dealing with a strained relationship with her ex-girlfriend, and that person is also her best friend. So this story follows these characters as they are navigating their new reality while also trying to face the past and deciding on where they want to go in the future. So out of that whole week of reading, this was by far my favorite book that I read. It is very heavy, so I will leave some content warnings down in the description below. There were points in here where I almost cried, like it almost got me, which this is the closest any book has come this year to actually making me cry. From the characters to the writing to just the actual story, I just loved every part of it. And kind of like the hate you give, this was just one of the easiest 5 stars I've ever given out. So the next book that I finished is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this follows our main character Imani, who juggles many different responsibilities in her everyday life, and the only place that she feels like she can let go of all of that is when she is in the kitchen cooking. And because of all of those different responsibilities, she feels like she is constantly sacrificing things that she wants to do because it's just like time and money. However, no matter how many rules Imani is supposed to follow in her everyday life, once she starts cooking, her only choice is to let her talent shine. So for this book, I actually did a full spoiler-free review video for it, so once again, I will have that link down in the description below. I've been wanting to read this book ever since it first came out. I read The Poet X last year and I really loved it. So I was definitely not surprised that I ended up loving this one as well. It's very character-based, which I thought was really fun because I did really love our main character here. And what I liked even more, actually, I'm gonna say loved for this, I loved her relationships with like her family and friends. The romance unfortunately did bring this book down for me though, but otherwise I did give this a 4.5 that I did round up. So this brings us to the start of the reading rush, which once again I will leave links down below to my vlogs that I did for that week. The next 4 books that I talk about are all part of that readathon, and I will have content warnings in the description for all of them. So the first book that I ended up finishing is Versailles of the Dead by Kimiko Tsukane. It's a manga that follows Marie Antoinette, who is on her way to marry the king. However, on their way there, her carriage is attacked by zombies, and the only survivor is her brother Albert. I don't know what I was expecting from this book, but it definitely surprised me, and not in a bad way at all. I think I said at the end of my review for this I wasn't sure if I was going to continue on with this series, but I actually think I may. If Volume 1 surprised me, then I'm really curious to see where the rest of the series goes, and also at the moment I'm not reading any manga that's like this one. And I'm also in general just trying to read more manga. So although this was a 3-star, my thoughts on this are kind of minimum, I definitely may end up giving this one another chance. So the next book is The Diviners by Libba Bray. So this book follows our main character Evie, who has moved out of her boring hometown in Ohio to go live in New York City in the 1920s with her uncle, who has an obsession with the occult. Evie is worried that her uncle will find out about her own supernatural ability. However, when this murder happens, Evie feels like her gift can help solve it. So this was probably my least favorite book out of my TBR for that readathon. Once again, I'm not a fan of mysteries, and apparently that extends to murder mysteries as well. And I guess I underestimated how much of this book would actually be related to that, and at the same time I overestimated how much the occult stuff would actually be woven into the plot. When this book did get supernatural though, I had a lot of fun, but when it wasn't, I definitely struggled with it, with the exception of just like a couple of random scenes with the characters, because I did end up liking the characters. I do see a lot of potential for me in this series in the future. I don't know if it's going to go the way that I think it might though. Just based on like the ending of the book, I'm not sure if it's going to go that way, but I also did enjoy how the book actually ended for the most part. Overall, this was a very weird 3-star for me, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet moving forward. So the next book is The Good Luck Girls by Charlotte Nicole Davis. So this book follows a group of girls known as the Good Luck Girls who were sold off to a welcome house when they were very young and branded with curse markings. When one of these girls accidentally murders somebody, they all work together to try to find their freedom from this house. Along the way, they are being hunted down by powerful forces, both human and not, and their only hope comes from a bedtime story that may or may not actually be real. This was one of my favorites from that week. I loved the characters and the setting. The only thing I didn't really get is the magic system, and also like the creatures that were in here too. Just while I was reading, I would often like be confused and I just never fully got a hold of it. Now it is possible that I missed something important because I was reading 2 other books at the same time. I honestly couldn't tell you if I did. But other than that, I did give this 4 stars. I was very excited to find out that this was getting a sequel, and I cannot wait to see where this series goes in the future. So next is The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. This book takes place in Nazi Germany, and it follows our main character. She like discovers her love of reading, and then she starts stealing books from like book burnings and just wherever else she could find them. Her way of life gets turned upside down when her family takes in a Jewish man and hides him in their basement. Overall, this is told from the perspective of death, and it just like follows these characters' lives during this time. This was also a good one for me, which I'm very excited to say because at the beginning of this book I honestly wasn't too sure. It's a book that as I kept reading it, it just got better and better and better. There were so many points throughout this book where I just had so much trouble putting it down, which is not something I could say for all of my books on that TBR. It is over 500 pages, but I did not feel the length at all, which is something I am very grateful about. And I've just loved the movie and just this story for so long now that I'm very glad that by the end of this book I was confidently able to give it its 5 stars. So The Book Thief was the last book that I ended up reading for the reading rush. So next we move on to Fairy Tale Volume 1 by Hiro Mashima. So this follows one of our main characters, Lucy, who is a celestial wizard who really wants to join the powerful wizard guild Fairy Tale, and this series basically follows their adventures. I talked about this in my August TBR, but this is just a series that has just meant so much to me for such a long time now. I started this anime around my freshman year of high school, like 5-6 years ago now, and it was just like everything to me. Like, it's one of the biggest obsessions that I've ever had. Unfortunately, I did fall off of it a little bit, and just like anime in general when I started college. But thankfully, I've been super in the mood for this series recently, and I already own the first 8 volumes of the manga, so I decided to not only give the first 8 volumes a reread, but also just finish the whole series in general. And then after this, also finally finish the anime. At one point I was caught up to it, I just need to watch like that final season that they did. Before that, I feel like I definitely do need a refresher on like the beginning arc, so I'm gonna go for the manga first. Both this and its anime are super long, but I really want to commit to this and also just commit to reading more manga in general, especially Hiro Mashima's. There are just so many characters and ships and adventures to just love in this series. Honestly, I'm finding the length pretty comforting because it just means I get to be with all of that for so much longer. And just like reading the first volume again, it was just like coming home, and I gave this 5 stars. I cannot imagine not giving anything from this series 5 stars, by the way, so you're probably going to be hearing that a lot. But yeah, I'm just so excited to be back with this and to finally continue on with it and then to eventually finally finish it. So the last book that I ended up finishing in July is Stay Sweet by Siobhan Vivian. This book follows our main character Amelia, who is the head girl at a female-operated ice cream stand. The culture at the stand is very sisterly and very rooted in tradition. However, one day the owner of the stand dies, and Amelia is left concerned that the stand cannot continue on. Then one day the owner's grandnephew shows up and takes over the business, and then the story goes from there. So this was a book that I started before the reading rush, and I had planned to have this done before that week, but that did not happen, and I ended up finishing this 1 hour before July actually ended. So this is probably one of the most summer-like books that I've ever read, so if you're looking for a summer read, this could definitely be the one. And honestly, my favorite thing about it was probably the summer atmosphere. I had originally wanted to be as happy as these girls on the cover here. That did not happen. For a good portion of this book, I did not even know what to rate it because I had that little amount of thoughts on it. And then towards the end of this book, I actually found myself frustrated with a lot of the characters, not just the ones that you were supposed to be mad at, but also the ones that you weren't. And I was also just like annoyed by the fact that I was even supposed to be annoyed at one of these characters in the first place. So I did have some issues with the direction that some of the plot took, but otherwise this was a 3-star. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and answer the question that will be around here if you want to do that. And hopefully I will see you here next time. Bye!